Everyone. So after my first foray with working with copper, I did a little bit of research, and I found out that if you were to cook with copper, if copper comes in contact with food, it might leach into the food, and that could make you sick. And although copper it's a necessary mineral, in too large quantities, like I said, it will make you sick. So, but that's basically for cooking. I think if it's something like this, that's just a vessel to hold food, it should be perfectly fine. And to be honest, even with the cooking aspect, I'm a little bit skeptical. I've also read a similar thing about tin and about aluminum, and I'm sure those things are probably true, but you know, in the plastic world that we live in, I wouldn't be surprised if that research was sponsored by the plastic manufacturers of the world. So, I can't, no one is going to convince me that things like copper, aluminum, or tin are more toxic than plastics. That's what I'm basically getting at. So, but to get back to the point, so anyway, working with copper, I find it to be very interesting. But there has to be, some caution or precaution taken. And that one other thing, though, that is definitely real and that you should definitely be careful for is something called verdigris. Or in the French, it's verdigris. And what that is it's the oxidation of copper. And you'll know that, like, if you look at the Statue of Liberty and it's green, that's verdigris. So, and verdigris, if it comes in contact with food and then you ingest that's poisonous and could make you sick. And so if you look at this, this was only made a few days ago and it's already showing signs of verdigris. So I don't know if you can see right in that spot right there, it's pretty obvious, and right here as well. So I think that traditionally people would clean their copper implements quite a bit, and so if you were to clean this and no verdigris was to form, you'd be perfectly fine, in my opinion. So after I made that bowl, I made this simple small cup, and kind of interesting looking, right? But like I said, copper is very humbling. I still have that steel mentality, and I put the piece in the forge and I walked away just for 30 seconds or so. When I came back, a hole was burned through the bottom. So, but it was, since copper has such a low melting point, it was easily fixable. I just put some more copper inside of it and let that melt, and then it plugged up the hole. But the whole piece kind of melted and became very squat looking. But yeah, it's kind of interesting. So I'll definitely continue with stuff like this in future videos. Like I said, I'm kind of interested to make a much better small style cup. So now that leads to today's video and what I would like to do. So after I cut out the copper for this bowl, and then later in the day when I was sweeping up the floor, I had a lot of copper dust that I was sweeping up. And so I was about to throw it away, and then I thought, let me try to see if I can fuse this copper to a piece of steel. And then that might make a very interesting way to do inlays. And I'm sure people have done this before. I've never seen it. I don't watch videos on YouTube regarding this. So if there's a better way to do this, I'm sure there is. So basically what I did was took a piece of steel and I just cut a line in it, and then I heated the steel to about yellow, and then I sprinkled this dust on it, and then put it back in the forge until the copper melted, and took it out and let it cool, and then clean this off with my bench grinder, and then lo and behold, within that line the copper seems to be welded. It seems to be permanently fused to the steel, and it's hard to tell probably. I'll come in a little close, but you can even see the copper here on the face, because I had it sprinkled over the whole surface, where it actually fused itself to the surface right here. And then within this line, which is maybe halfway down this piece, it seems to be permanently affixed. So, and you also see some particles, some black particles here, and that's basically because I swept this off of the floor, so there's also some steel scale and some dirt mixed within that. So, and that, we definitely don't want that. So for today's project, what I want to do is I have this piece of steel that I want to turn into a handle for something. And I thought it would be really cool if I use my touch mark to punch my initials in this, and then maybe put a line above and below that, and then try this method of trying to weld copper to steel to create an inlay. So, but rather than use the dirty stuff there, I might take this piece of scrap and I'll use my hacksaw to cut, and then maybe catch with a piece of paper some of those small pieces that fall, or maybe just cut out some small pieces from this of copper and then use those and see if that'll work. So yeah, this is just an experiment. I think it will work based on this, and I think this could lead to very interesting designs. So yeah, let's see how it goes, and we'll take it from there. So rather than cut, I decided to hot punch in some lines above and below where I'll put my initials. Now my touch mark with my initials. I'm aiming to fill in the top and bottom lines and my initials with the copper. I'm trying to remove any scale, and I also sprinkle in this copper dust pretty liberally. When it reaches a certain temperature, I very gently tamp it in. Then I heat it to the point where I can just about see the copper flowing. And I set it aside to cool. By the looks of it, I can tell that this was unsuccessful. And a little grinding confirms that. Goodbye, copper. So now I'll have another go at it in a different manner. I need to get the scale off of the piece first. I decided to just do my GS initials and carefully place the copper while everything is cold. I'm using that needle and a magnifying glass to remove any little pieces of scale or dirt. For this go, I decided to use a little boric acid to act as a flux. I put a tiny amount of boric acid within the initials and then put the copper on top of that. This is the result. It looks good. I heated the copper and then I tamped it down just a little bit. Then I reinserted into the forge and I got it up to just past the melting point of the copper, took it out and let it cool. I can tell right now that this is definitely successful. So after a few unsuccessful attempts, I finally got this to take, and it's in there. It's not going to go anywhere now. The bottom of my S, I might not have punched that in deep enough, or I might have ground it a little bit too much there, so that's missing. And so I think the addition of using borax definitely made a difference. So I'm going to also experiment with getting the steel up to heat first and then adding the copper, or doing like this one, having it cold and applying the copper within the area that you want it to flow, and then heating it. And that, like I said, that seemed to work fine now. So next time I'll try to do this sort of a thing on thicker lines like these. And I think with using the method I just used should be successful. So, but this definitely can stand to be experimented on some more. So yeah, thanks for sticking with this one. To be continued.